What if the most powerful superfoods we've ever known were eaten 3,000 years ago and then forgotten? Today, supermarket shelves are colorful, yet soulless. Everything is polished, neat, and perfect. But what if the strongest, most resilient vegetables are hidden deep in our past? In ancient times, people didn't just grow vegetables to fill their stomachs. They cultivated plants that strengthened the body, purified the mind, and were even offered to the gods. These plants gave strength to warriors, patience to farmers, and insight to priests. Today, most of those vegetables have completely disappeared. There's barely anyone left who even knows their names. The speed, appearance, and industry of modern agriculture have left behind the wisdom that nature built over thousands of years. So, what if these forgotten vegetables came back? What if we brought that ancient knowledge back to our tables? And let's ask ourselves, would we survive in that world? Here are the 15 forgotten vegetables ancient farmers grew that need to come back. Corn salad, valerianella. The quiet power of ancient Europe. Corn salad, its name confused people and then it vanished from history. Did you know that this plant, which sounds like it's related to corn, is actually not corn at all, but a humble yet vital green that grew on its own among wheat fields? In ancient Europe, especially in Roman and Gallic regions, farmers didn't plant this crop intentionally, because they didn't need to. It was the first green to appear in the fields after harvest. During the cold winter months, when nothing else grew, corn salad was still there. What made it special wasn't just its resilience. Its high levels of omega-3, vitamin C, and iron led modern scientists to describe it as superior to wild lettuce. Its slightly nutty flavor made it ideal for salads and healing soups. Seeing fresh greens during cold months was a luxury. Corn salad made that possible. But then, it gained visual appeal and lost nutritional value. Modern agriculture began to favor greens that looked better on shelves, lasted longer, but offered less nutrition. Corn salad quietly faded into the background. Today, in some rural villages of Europe, the elders who still know this plant call it the taste I want to have one last time before I die. Maybe not everything that's quiet is destined to be forgotten. Mallow, malva, looks fragile, bursts with healing. In the eyes of the ancient world, mallow, known today as ebegumechi, was not just an ordinary plant. Today, most people think of it as a common roadside weed. But thousands of years ago, from Egypt to Anatolia, from Rome to India, it was a symbol of healing. It appears in Hippocrates' medical texts. Pliny called it nature's first pharmacy. So, what did this delicate-looking plant do? Everything. Its young leaves were eaten, its roots boiled, its seeds dried. Ancient doctors prescribed mallow for digestion, inflammation, respiratory issues, even wound treatment. The Egyptians used it for both nourishment and spiritual cleansing. Before entering temples, they would drink mallow tea, believing the soul couldn't be purified unless the body was cleansed. Rich or poor, it didn't matter. It was found in every class's kitchen and medicine chest. But over time, superfoods were replaced by supermarket shelf aesthetics. Mallow was neither flashy nor long-lasting, so modern agriculture labeled it a weed. Today, most of us walk right over it. But the ancients had a name for it. The plant that softens all illness. Rocket aruca. The ancient libido vegetable. Today, we glance over rocket in our salads, but in ancient times, it was much more than that. To them, rocket wasn't just a plant, it was desire itself. The ancient Romans didn't just eat its leaves, they crushed its seeds and mixed the extract into wines. Why? Because the plant was famous as a natural aphrodisiac at the time. It was considered so potent that some temple priests even called for it to be banned. Legend says it was specially grown in the gardens of temples dedicated to Venus, the goddess of love. But it wasn't just about emotions. Rocket was believed to have antiseptic properties, aid digestion, and especially increased the oxygen-carrying capacity of the blood. In other words, it was perfect for both warriors and lovers. Rocket grows naturally in the sunny soils of the Mediterranean. It doesn't need much water. It doesn't care about the soil. Just like emotions, you never know when or where it will sprout. But today, with genetically modified soulless varieties filling our markets, the ancient sensuality and wisdom have been severed. Yet those who first tasted Aruca knew it was a fuel not just for the body, but for the inner fire as well. Amaranth, the grain of immortality. There was a grain almost entirely unknown in the modern world, but associated with immortality in ancient times: amaranth. Its name comes from Greek, amaranthos, the one that does not fade, does not die. And this wasn't just poetic flair. The nutritional value of this plant was so high that the ancient Greeks regarded it both as food and as a sacred object in rituals. Amaranth seeds are small but dense, rich in protein with a well-balanced amino acid profile and loaded with minerals. Ancient soldiers carried these seeds with them, surviving for days on just a few handfuls. In ancient mythology, the altars dedicated to goddesses were surrounded by amaranth flowers. Its unfading nature symbolized the immortality of the soul. And it wasn't just the Greeks. In Indian civilizations, in Central America, the Aztecs loved it too, and even in Egypt, this plant was revered simultaneously across the world. Perhaps this widespread appreciation was because it truly was something special. So what happened over time? It couldn't find a place in modern agriculture. It had no commercial value since it looked plain and was hard to process. But today, scientists are turning back to it. With its gluten-free structure, high protein content, and ability to grow in any soil, it could be the sustainable food of the future. Could this golden grain of the past become the hidden hero of tomorrow? Spelt, Rome's forgotten bread. One of the lesser-known but treasured plants of ancient times was colocasia. Today, it's known as taro in some Asian countries, but thousands of years ago it was a staple food for the people living along the Nile. It was cooked both in the palaces of the pharaohs and in the huts of villagers. Colocasia had large leaves and tuberous roots. The root part was packed with starch, very filling, and could be dried for storage or boiled, and added to meals immediately. The ancient Egyptians especially relied on it during dry seasons, because while many other plants would dry out without water, colocasia remained resilient even in swamp-like conditions. It wasn't just a plant. It was practically a hunger insurance. Moreover, local beliefs held that the root of colocasia nourished not just the body, but the soul as well. In some sacred dishes offered to the gods in temples, traces of this plant can still be found. Today, it may appear as just a source of starch, but back then, it was sacred and full of meaning. However, as rice and wheat rose in popularity, colocasia was forgotten. Modern farming lacked the patience for its deep-rooted but demanding nature. It still grows wild in some regions today, but hardly anyone knows that once upon a time, pharaohs were nourished by it. Maybe some foods fight not just against hunger, but against being forgotten by time. Sea kale, the lifesaver by the shore. Sea kale was one of ancient Europe's overlooked but vital vegetables. Especially for communities living along the northern coasts, this plant was like a miracle during the winter months. Because while other vegetables froze, sea kale stayed green. Its broad, fleshy leaves were rich in vitamin C, providing a natural shield against scurvy for sailors and fishermen. Ancient communities consumed it, boiled, roasted, or pickled. Its taste was soft with a hint of salt, like the merging of sea and land. Over time, as agriculture moved inland, coastal plants were forgotten. But today, with shifting climate conditions, this hardy vegetable is gaining value once again. Chufa, tiger nuts, the sweet energy source of the Egyptians. Chufa, or by its more popular name, tiger nuts, may look like a nut, but it's actually a tuber. And this tiny tuber wasn't just a casual snack in ancient Egypt, it was a symbol of strength and purification. The Egyptians consumed chufa for daily energy and also offered it to the gods. Some altars dedicated to the sun god Ra have traces of this sweet root. Archaeologists have even found specially prepared chufa mixtures in certain pharaoh tombs. Its nutritional value is surprising. It's rich in fiber, contains natural sugars, and supports digestive health. And most importantly, it can be dried and stored for years. The Egyptians would grind these tubers and mix them with honey, consuming them like energy balls. They were essentially the ancestors of the energy bars we eat in gyms today. Over time, as crops like rice, wheat, and sugarcane gained dominance, chufa was forgotten. But this small tuber still lives on in some Spanish villages as the main ingredient in a drink called horchata, thousands of kilometers from Egypt, yet still alive. Maybe some foods travel quietly, but never truly disappear. Fenugreek, chemin, Babylon's spice or ancient medicine. Fenugreek is a spice that divides opinion in today's kitchens with its strong smell. Some love it, others don't. But thousands of years ago, in the heart of Mesopotamia, especially in Babylon, it was a part of both daily meals and sacred texts. It's one of the rare plants mentioned in ancient writings. Babylonian tablets claimed that fenugreek enhanced fertility, symbolized strength in men, and eased childbirth in women. But its main role wasn't in food. Fenugreek was a plant that spoke the language of medicine. Fenugreek seeds were regarded as both antibacterial and anti-inflammatory. They were used especially for digestive disorders, fatigue, and skin issues. Sometimes mixed with water and applied as a poultice for wounds, sometimes burned as incense to drive away evil spirits. It was also agriculturally valuable. It could grow in harsh conditions and enrich the soil with nitrogen. So it didn't just nourish people, it nourished the earth. However, as its sharp smell began to be considered too strong for modern palates, fenugreek slowly disappeared from kitchens. It was replaced by lighter, more refined spices. In medicine, it was replaced by lab-made drugs. But ancient people knew, the stronger the scent, the deeper the effect. And some smells could even awaken the soul. Fennel, resine, the herb inhaled by the oracles of Delphi. Today, many people only know fennel as a tea. They might drink it to ease digestion or avoid it because of its overpowering taste. But in ancient times, fennel was not just a common healing herb. It was a symbol of prophecy and intuition. It's believed that the priestesses of the Temple of Apollo in Delphi meditated in rooms infused with fennel incense before entering a trance. The aroma of fennel provided not just physical but mental purification. In Greek mythology, fennel appears as the sacred stalk Prometheus used to bring fire to humanity. The knowledge of the gods was delivered to earth through a plant. And that plant was fennel. In practical terms, fennel wasn't just legendary, it was truly effective. It regulated digestion, boosted appetite, reduced bloating, and even strengthened the immune system. The Romans would eat its seeds before battles, not to ease digestion, but to sharpen their minds. It was also an exceptional plant agriculturally. It withstood drought, didn't deplete the soil, and grew freely along the endless slopes of the Mediterranean, with no need for a farmer to plant it. But over time, fennel's too distinctive flavor pushed it behind more neutral-tasting herbs on the market. Modern diets favored bland and safe flavors. Yet once upon a time, people tried to hear the voices of the gods through this plant. Lotus root, the taste of purification in ancient Egypt. The lotus flower is, for most people, a visual symbol. It represents serenity, balance, and spiritual enlightenment. But in ancient Egypt, the lotus was not just a symbol. It was also food, medicine, and a ritual tool, especially its edible part, the root. According to Egyptian belief, the lotus root purified the body, calmed the mind, and cleansed the soul. Temple priests ate lotus root after long fasts to gently restart digestion. It was also placed in tombs during funeral ceremonies to guide the dead in the afterlife, because the lotus root symbolized rebirth. Its nutritional value was high, rich in starch, but also containing vitamin C and potassium, Among the people, it was boiled and eaten, cooked in sweet water, or sweetened with honey on special occasions. Its aroma was mild, and its texture curious, neither fully firm nor completely soft, like a bridge standing between faith and science. Today, lotus root still appears in some Asian cuisines, but its ancient meaning, that deep connection, has long been forgotten. Yet it was a root that grew untainted in water, and people nourished not just their bodies, but also their minds with it. Wild leeks, Anatolia's sacred onion. Today, when we think of leeks, most of us picture a common winter vegetable. But in ancient times, especially in the lands of Anatolia, wild leeks were both sacred and strategic nourishment. From the Phrygians to the Hittites, from the Lydians to the Hellenistic period, traces of this plant can be found in many sources. Its emergence with the awakening of the soil in spring made it more than just physical nourishment. It became a symbol of rebirth and the cycle of life. It was an essential part of ritual meals offered to the gods. Its value wasn't only cultural, but also practical. It endured harsh climates, survived the cold, multiplied on its own, and enriched the soil rather than depleting it, just like it nourished the bodies that consumed it. It also held importance for health. It boosted immunity, regulated the intestines, and was used as a natural antibiotic during times of illness. Even the physicians of that time documented these effects. But modern agriculture left wild leeks behind in favor of aesthetics and yield. Fields now demanded order, uniform height, and shape. Yet wild leeks had a free spirit. They didn't grow according to land nor bend to human will. Maybe that's why they were forgotten, but to be forgotten does not mean to be worthless. Because some plants nourish not just the stomach, but also the human character. Ancient barley, the golden grain of the Nile. In ancient times, barley was a staple for the earliest civilizations born along the fertile banks of the Nile River. But it was very different from the barley we know today. It had smaller grains, was more resilient, and more nutritious. The Egyptians used this grain to feed themselves and to prepare offerings for their gods. Barley wasn't just a food, it was a ritual element. Dried barley stalks have even been found in pharaohs' tombs, as it was believed to be necessary in the afterlife. Ancient barley was known for its resilience. Floods, drought, pests, whatever came its way, this plant stood tall. It demanded little from the soil but gave much to people. It was rich not just in carbohydrates but also in fiber and minerals. For that reason, it served as an energy source for both laborers and soldiers. With just one bowl of barley porridge, you could work for days. But over time, high-yield but low-nutrient modern varieties replaced it. The industry preferred crops that grew fast and processed easily. Ancient barley, however, required patience, time, and respect. Today, very few people know its true potential. Yet it fed an entire civilization for centuries, not just physically, but culturally as well. Sumerian bean, lablab, the seed of abundance and survival. Imagine walking through the streets of Ur, one of the oldest cities in history. Temples rise high, the market hums with life, and the aroma of meals cooking in clay pots fills the air. In the kitchen of this ancient world, a vegetable most people have never heard of takes the spotlight: lablab, also known as the Sumerian bean. This plant wasn't just filling, it was sacred. In Sumerian tablets, it was called the seed that softens the earth. In a land battling drought, it thrived on little water, healed the soil, and nourished the people. It was also highly nutritious, rich in protein and fiber, and gentle on digestion. That's why it was used in both daily meals and purification soups offered to temples. Sumerian priests prepared a special dish from this bean during seasonal transitions as an offering to the gods. Because this vegetable didn't just satisfy hunger, it invited abundance. That's why people would scatter a few of its seeds on their doorsteps to keep evil away. But over time, as larger and faster-growing legumes emerged, lablab was pushed aside. Today, it survives in just a few tropical regions, but once, it was one of the cornerstones of a civilization. And perhaps the most ironic part is this. We have forgotten it, but it still lives. It grows quietly, waits patiently. Maybe one day people will remember its worth again. Camelina, golden seed, Rome's oil factory. When we think of ancient Roman cuisine, olive oil comes to mind, of course. But long before that, the Romans relied on another liquid to light their tables, flavor their meals, and heal their wounds: camelina oil. This plant was also known as the golden seed, because both its color and its value were compared to gold. Camelina was especially widespread in the northern regions of the Roman Empire. It was cold-resistant, productive, and required far less maintenance than other oil plants. But what truly made it valuable was the oil extracted from its seeds, which served as both food and medicine. It was turned into ointment for skin wounds, burned in lamps, and used in salads. In fact, it was even more beneficial than many plants marketed today as rich in omega-3. Agriculturally, it was a miracle. It thrived in barren soils and made infertile lands useful. Roman farmers called it the earth's humble but loyal child. In times of war, it was packed into soldiers' bags, providing both energy and quick remedies for minor ailments. But over time, olive oil, sunflower oil, and industrial agriculture's favorites surpassed camelina. Its quiet, steady power faded into the shadow of shinier, faster-growing varieties. Even today, some agricultural researchers are looking to return to camelina, because this drought-resistant, low-maintenance, nutrient-rich plant might once again become a savior. The Romans saw it as gold. Silphium, the lost golden plant. Wars may not have been waged over it, but cities rose, trade routes were drawn, and coins were minted because of it. Silphium, the most prized plant of the ancient world, may be completely extinct today. But once upon a time, people pushed their limits to obtain it. It was so valuable that some city-states grew rich from its trade. Others collapsed when they lost it. Truly, Silphium was no ordinary herb. Mentioned in ancient Greek and Roman texts, Silphium was used as medicine, spice, and even a method of birth control. Yes, in antiquity, women believed this plant could delay pregnancy. It was also an appetite stimulant, aided digestion, and its flavor was both spicy and slightly sweet, making it a staple of luxurious feasts. The Romans dried its stalks to add flavor to wine, while doctors prescribed it for almost every ailment. Some even called it a gift from the gods. But the plant had one flaw: it couldn't be cultivated. It only grew naturally along the Libyan coast, in a specific region. And instead of respecting its natural cycle, people consumed it rapidly. There was so much demand that eventually it disappeared completely. To this day, archaeologists and botanists still haven't been able to definitively identify its species. Silphium's story is not just the loss of a vegetable. It's the loss of a mindset. When humanity disrupts its delicate balance with nature, even the most precious things can quietly vanish from the world. And maybe, as we close this list, we should remember: some plants nourished not only the body, but the mind of civilization. And when we lose them, we don't just lose a flavor. We lose a perspective. We watched this list and perhaps heard the names of some vegetables for the first time, met some with surprise, others with admiration. But to the people of antiquity, these plants were not merely food. To them, a seed was wisdom, a root was loyalty, a leaf was healing, and every meal placed on the table was the result of an agreement with nature. Today, we see shinier, bigger, more perfect vegetables on supermarket shelves, but most of them are not products of nature. They're products of industry. They have a long shelf life, but a short nutritional one. They grow fast, but slow us down. In the past, people watched the land, waited for the moon, and cultivated with patience because they knew nature does not rush time. And these forgotten vegetables, perhaps they need to return not just to our tables but to our minds as well. In the face of escalating climate crises, soil exhaustion, and unhealthy dietary habits, this ancient knowledge is gaining value once again. Maybe the answer is not in rebuilding the future, but in remembering what we've lost. These 15 vegetables, whose seeds were left in the past, might actually be the future for all of us. And perhaps that's why we must not only remember them, but entrust them to the soil once again. If what you've just heard made you think not only about the past, but also the future, you're in the right place. Primordia is here for those who want to reconnect with forgotten knowledge. In every episode, we rebuild the lost bridges between history, nature, and humanity, together. Don't forget to subscribe to stay updated on new videos. See you in the next discovery.